As a project manager, it is your job to ensure your team is at its peak with productivity. And in this video, I'm going to share with you the things that you need to do to help your team be its best productively, so that is just going to ensure the best project ever. Bring on the right team members. Yes, this is the first thing you have to do to ensure a very productive project team. If you don't have the right team members, and that comes from a couple perspectives. It could be from a subject matter expertise. You don't have the right subject matter expert on your team in order to conduct the tasks needed in order to execute the project deliverable, then yeah, it's going to have impact on the productivity because they just don't have the expertise to do it. It may take them a lot longer because they're learning as they're going. Not to say that that's wrong, but it's really going to have an impact on productivity. The other aspect you have to think when it comes to having the right people on your team is not just from a subject matter expert perspective, but from an attitude perspective. If you have a team member who is completely complaining all the time, creating issues, constantly challenging every little thing, which I know I've had in my past, I'm sure you've experienced it as well. If you hadn't, I promise you will have at least one project that you find someone like that. You really need to look at that particular person from a productivity perspective, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And what I mean by that is if you have that person who's constantly complaining, throwing the wrench into every scenario and situation, something that would be really simple and easy to move forward with now has to be reevaluated, re-looked at. The amount of work you go through just to get to the same answer is crazy, and it impacts the productivity of your team and actually can set it back from an attitude perspective too. People get very frustrated with that. So that's something definitely to think about. Do you have the right people on your team from a subject matter expert perspective and an attitude perspective? And you can always help change attitudes. So it is something that if you do have a person like that, spend some time talking to them. But if they choose not to change, that's their choice. You also have the choice to see if you can get a new team member. I have a little side note for you. I have something really cool that I want to share with you that I'm going to give you more information further along in this video, and that is how to make sure that your projects are extremely successful. So I want you to stay tuned for that. Get to know your team's strengths and weaknesses. If you want to have a real high-functioning, productive team, then you need to have an understanding as to what they're really good at and what areas that they may need some improvement with. You know, weaknesses, whatever, it's not a judgment on their character or anything like that. It's just to know that if you're going to move forward and be productive, really give the stuff to the individuals who are really talented at it so that you can get through in a very productive, effective, and efficient way. And for those who are not that great at it, you may want to consider giving them something else that they're strong in as well, because it's the strength of the team that you build together that ensures you move forward. So really get to know what the strengths and weaknesses are. Don't judge it. It's just so that you can ensure that the right people are doing the right tasks. Set realistic goals. So when you're doing your project, you need to make sure that everyone is on that same page with what they are delivering and the timeline that they're delivering in it and the expectations around it. You need to do this at the beginning of your project. If you try to figure this out during the project or in the middle of the project or the end of the project, you are going to be very ineffective. Your productivity is going to go down because you're constantly trying to figure things out. But this setting of the goal, being very clear at the beginning, is how you ensure a real productive team, because you've also clarified things with senior management who is approving things to move forward as well, because they can be a roadblock if they're not all on the same page. So just get really clear with the goals of all key stakeholders involved at the beginning of the project. Prioritize tasks. It's really easy in a project to be working on what we think is really urgent, but maybe not necessarily important. So you really need to prioritize things that are extremely important to the overarching aspect of your project. Things should not be urgent. What do I mean by that? If you plan properly and you've done everything that you need to do from a productivity standpoint, you've done everything up front at the beginning of the project, then there really shouldn't be anything that kind of throws you for a loop unless it's a brand new requirement that you have to do and your scope change, okay, that's a different story. But if you've done all your pre-planning up front, then you know what you have to deliver on. You can start prioritizing those tasks and focus on the things that are important. When you prioritize tasks, it's about ensuring that the overarching goal is going to get delivered in a way that's efficient and effective. Again, hence very productive, and your team is productive because they're very clear with what they have to do and the sequencing that they have to do it. It does not mean that you don't work on other stuff. It just means you're going to work on the stuff that is of top priority at that point in time. And you need to be clear and share that information with your team, because once they have that clarity, they can then sift through all that white noise, all that urgent stuff from other people, because they know it's really not that important to the overall goal. So setting your tasks and prioritizing them, huge win from a productivity standpoint. Track your project status. This may seem like a no-brainer, but it actually is something that people tend not to do well. We kind of know what's out there. I've seen this on projects. People just, oh, here's what's going to happen, but no one's really officially tracking it. And what I mean by that is you want to have like an overarching timeline. You want to have overarching milestones that people have to hit. And you want to remind people of those milestones, because there's tons of their tasks underneath those milestones that they actually have to deliver on. So by really tracking the project status, where are people at, it gives you a glimpse into the status of things, which allows you to course correct quickly, ensuring that your team is really productive and that anything that it has to do course correction with will have minimal impact to the overall deliverable, because you're constantly on top of it. Give and receive feedback. Oh, this is really important to do to be productive. You really do need to course correct people. If they're on the right path, let them know so they can continue the great work that they're doing. If they're not on the right path, you need to course correct it. Now, I would say this is something new for me, because in the past, living in Canada, North America, I actually took that perspective of how to give feedback from a North American perspective. And what that is we usually give something, we say something really nice that they're doing really well, and then the second item that we bring up is here's what you can improve. So you always kind of, here's your carrot, here's the stick sort of concept. But I learned something new that I want to share with you. I want to share with you this book, The Culture Map. It talks about culture. So if you do global projects, you are dealing with multiple people from different cultures who have different ways of thinking. And our way of thinking in North America would actually be taken in the wrong context if you look at it from a different culture perspective. Someone that it could be from Europe, from England, from Japan, from India, wherever it may be, everyone from their culture perspective has a different way of thinking, processing information, getting feedback. So I learned so much from this book. I don't know, maybe I'll do a book review. If you guys want it, put it in the comments. But I highly recommend you learn about the cultures on your team, and you may have to address people differently based on what is normal to them. Okay, I am so excited for you because you just got a whole bunch of tips on how to be productive, and I want to give you one more tip, and that is to be productive, you need to make sure your projects don't fail. And this is for you, free, my gift to you. How do you get this? Underneath this video, there is a link. Go grab it. Remember my tips? I told you need to be monitoring the task. Well, in this next video that I have here, a definite must watch, something you should do right after this video, is how to create your own Excel action plan so you can track those tasks. On that note, if you could like this video, subscribe to my channel. It tells YouTube we're doing a good job, and I very much appreciate it when you do, and it helps grow this awesome community. I'll see you at the next video.